Good evening and welcome back to It's Getting Hot in Here, the weekly climate change podcast. Tonight I'm accompanied by our featured guest, Fred Waters, who is a longtime resident of Key West, Florida. Hello, Fred. How are you tonight?
Good evening, Martha. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. And tonight we're discussing a topic very pertinent to you, Fred, the possibility of human displacement due to sea level rise. As many of our listeners likely already know, Fred and millions of others living in coastal regions are in danger of losing their homes and businesses to sea level rise. Sea level rise is being caused by climate change and is already impacting many areas of the world, including the east coast of the United States, where you live, Fred. Tell us, what happens in Key West after a particularly heavy rainstorm at high tide?
Parts of the island seem to flood and the water takes some time to recede. This has gradually gotten worse, though, over the past few years.
That's right, and according to projections, this will continue to get worse. According to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, sea level in the Florida Keys will rise approximately 15 inches by 2045, causing more frequent and more severe tidal flooding, up to 375 times a year by 2045.
So, does that mean my home or business could potentially be flooded every day of the year?
Yes, if you're in a lower-lying area affected by these floods and your house is not elevated off the ground.
My house is not elevated off the ground. Is there anything I can do to prepare for this?
Yes, there are multiple options. The first option, which many people do not like, is to move to an area of higher elevation.
Well, let's just say that's a last resort, if even possibly an option. I've lived in Key West my entire life. Met my wife here, raised our children here, and my business is here. We love the beach and the atmosphere of Key West. I cannot imagine living anywhere else, especially not away from the beach. Besides, I couldn't afford to. My livelihood is here and specific to the area. I wouldn't be able to find a comparable job elsewhere.
Okay, I figured you wouldn't be too excited for that option. The next option is also rather expensive, but would allow you to continue living in Key West, at least for longer than you could right now. And that option is, as we discussed earlier, to raise your house on stilts above the projected sea level.
But that's just so expensive. But I guess it is cheaper and more appealing than moving off of the island. I'd be willing to consider this if necessary. What about preventing sea level rise altogether? Is there any way to do that?
Well, there are no guarantees because it's already started. However, because climate change is the driver of sea level rise, mitigation efforts could somewhat prevent this.
What are those?
Mitigation efforts are practices that will decrease carbon emissions, as this is the leading cause of climate change. They consist of things you've probably heard of before, such as driving less and taking public transportation, walking or biking more, changing to energy-efficient appliances and light bulbs, recycling, and eating less meat.
I already do a lot of these things, and I'll be sure to start doing more. That seems like the easiest and cheapest option to me. But is my contribution alone enough to prevent sea level rise?
No, unfortunately it is not enough by itself. However, the more people who participate, the greater impact there will be. So encourage your friends, family, and neighbors to participate as well. Also, appealing to your lawmakers for county, state, and nationwide change could make an even bigger difference.
Thanks for the information and the great ideas.
No problem. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Of course. Have a good night.
You too. Well, Fred's story is a great example of the social implications of sea level rise, and especially human displacement. People are rooted to the areas in which they live, and many will refuse to leave unless it is absolutely necessary. It would be very difficult for the government to force them to leave, and would cause great emotional strain on those who were forced out of their homes. Another factor that will cause many to be unprepared for sea level rise is money. Many people simply do not have the funds to move inland or to adapt their homes by elevating them. If drastic mitigation or adaptation efforts are not put in place soon, the impact of sea level rise will be immense. As sea level rise impacts more and more people, the government will have to step in to assist them in either moving to higher lands or adapting their current areas. And that's it for today. Thank you for joining us on It's Getting Hot in Here. Have a great week.